Hello, 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 everyone. How's it going? Long time no see. Welcome to Global Hack Week, Cloud Week. Hope you're enjoying all the sessions that have been happening so far. Definitely had a ton of sessions yesterday, and I hope now you know how to be good with Git. Build your person portfolio website. I think there was one. I'm not sure if that happened, but then definitely how to build a LLM powered agent in less than 5 minutes on Snowflake. Definitely some really good streams happening over. Hello, 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 hello. I know some of you, definitely. I definitely remember Quackers and Cheese. And hi, hello, hey, amazing. 5 a.m. EST, yes, I know, right? Hey, 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 everyone. Okay. So, very interesting question. The first question that I have for the day, which is what if I have never tried it before? Don't worry. Most of my streams normally go from a very basic level to kind of, I wouldn't say advanced, but by the end of it, we end up with a project. Okay. Now, for this Chrome, building a Chrome extension session, I am taking like 6 sessions. So that's you are going to spend 12 hours with me. So I'm going to try and ensure that even if you have never done all of this, it's okay because we'll start from really basic. At some points, I will tell you just think that this is the way it is done. At some points, I'll dive deep into explaining why we are doing it the way we are doing it. Uh, Plus, also, I would say we won't directly dive into Chrome extension if you don't know React or you don't have a React experience because this project, okay, it is an interesting one. I thought of it when I was using uh, another tool for my project building. Okay, so I was using something called as raindrop.io, really cool free Chrome extension plus accompanying website, and the idea is it allows you to save links. So they have an accompanying website, so we will also build that, which will be React. So we won't dive directly deep into the Chrome extension part. We will start by building a backend with Express. We'll start by building a simple front end UI with React. And then once we understand uh, what exactly, like how exactly you write React code, how exactly JavaScript works, kind of, then we'll dive into building the Chrome extension, which should not take more than, I would say, 2.5 hours, because we would have the structure already defined. So yeah, with all of that, I think it would make it pretty easy. So you don't have to worry. And for MongoDB, I would say the hardest problem would be just uh, getting a cluster set up. I think everything else on MongoDB Atlas is pretty simple, and the way we use it in our project would also be very, very, very easy. So don't worry. No, there's no pre-stream preparation required. All, frankly, I have is a GitHub repo somewhere. Yes, there we go. So this is all I have for now. I can share this link. Wasn't going to share it like right now unless we get into details of the project. Uh, yeah. So there's nothing right now. But as we move on, yeah, as we move on, we will have like I'll push some things on my GitHub repo which you can just basically copy paste. Okay. And what else? Will this extension work on Microsoft Edge also, Mozilla also? I am not building specifically for those yet. Uh, like if we have time towards the end, I can tell you how to port it. But if we don't have it, and if you have been to my previous sessions, I like to give something called as a homework, which is just self learning. Okay, just try it out on your own. If you fail at any point, ask questions on the Discord chat of Global Hack Week. There are some amazing people out there who already have all this knowledge, so they can just help you get set up really quickly. They can guide you if you are unable to figure out at some things at some point, and even I'll be there. So if you just put it there that, oh, I'm trying to port it to Firefox, or I'm trying to port it to Microsoft Edge, it's not working, I can help you out there. Okay, I didn't check in. Okay, I'm glad that you're excited. But before we move ahead, let me quickly share the check in link. That was a very good reminder to me. There we go. So the check in link is in the chat. Please, please, please do check in for the session. It will help you, help me, help MLH. You will, like, the way to know if you attend the session is by checking in, right? So please do check in. Okay, cool. I think that is a good enough introduction. Now let's move on with the session. But before we do that, let me quickly introduce myself. If you are joining me for the very first time, hi, I am Utkarsh. I go by UT because that's how everyone knows me. So, tagging me with at UT would be easier than going for my full name. Searching for things related to me would be easier with UT rather than my full name. And yeah, I am a coach at Major League Hacking. I used to be slash still am a pod leader as well. Uh, Not very updated with all the recent changes, but yeah, I do have. Uh, I used to be that, and I'm still that. I like to stream specifically because it builds my knowledge. Okay, I sometimes stream because I find something really exciting, something really new, which I want to share, which is why every Global Hack Week, nearly every Global Hack Week, you'll see me around streaming something or the other. And because Global Hack Week has a very structured way, example, it has these topics or tracks every month, that also helps me specify or define or narrow down what I want to learn. So yeah, here I am, and I have done what, like 60 plus stream. 60 plus, is it? Wait, let me confirm. Actually, I was keeping a track of all the streams that I have done. I definitely crossed 50 at some point. uh, I have done 58 streams. So over the course of next 6 streams, I would complete 60, which is really cool, I feel. Uh, and that basically means that I have taken 60 sessions of imparting knowledge. Definitely, I can say that there are some of you who have found it helpful based on some feedback that I have received. But other than that, I think it's just fun and exciting to talk to people and to share what I know and learn from you all, because most of the times, uh, someone in the chat would help me that, oh, you could do it this way or that way, and I was like, oh yeah, I did not think of that. Okay, so yeah. And other than that, I am currently in the UK, so it is early morning, 10 a.m. Saturday morning for me. Hopefully, it is so. We'll have a 2 hour session, and then we'll take a lunch break, kind of. And you will have Way joining over for a fun game of Tetris mini event. And after that, we'll have another session actually of the part 2 of this. Okay. So, yeah, definitely a lot of exciting things for today. And I'll be back tomorrow as well. Okay. So, Yeah, that's an intro about me. And now let's get started. So let's first talk about the idea. Uh, so the idea, as I said, it's actually kind of very similar to raindrop.io, but I can try and explain it visually. Uh, so think of, like, when you start a project. Okay, we'll start from there. When you start a project at some point in your day, in your month, and let's say for XYZ reason, for learning purpose, you are not using any of the AI tools. So you're not using ChatGPT or any other things. And you are kind of searching, researching, or even if you are using ChatGPT, that's fine, because sometimes it hallucinates. If for some reason it hallucinates and the code is not exactly up to date, uh, because it does not remember what is the latest syntax looking like, then you will Google. So now you started a project. Let's say you started this one stop Chrome extension project, and you start like researching, diving into, like, searching, googling, using chat gpt uh, and you find some questions, some answers, some code snippets, some links to other blogs, and you want to, for this particular project, kind of note all of it down so that it is helpful when you go ahead, uh, or just for your remembering purpose, or just for the purpose of knowing that, oh yeah, these are some of the links that I have visited. So that is the idea of this project, creating kind of a shareable, your dev journey and your like research when you were building this project. So it could be the links, it could be like, some question and answers, it could be code snippets. So these are the focus that I have basically for now. And you organize them project wise. So one stop Chrome extension has like 100 links that you visited at one point. It had like, you wrote 50 Q&As, like how to do, uh, how to set a color, or how to set a provider in React, how to create a new React app. And you found some blogs, you found some tutorial links, you found some Stack Overflow answers. You basically note all of these down. Okay, and that's it. That's the idea of this project. So you can add this extension in your Chrome browser, and every time every time you are on a website which you want to note down, you could just open the Chrome extension, add the link, add the, I don't know, Q&A, add the code snippet, save it. And what will happen is it will get saved in MongoDB. So it will always be there. And depending on the time that we have, we'll also try and create some shareable links. So you can actually create a link, like we'll deploy this, we'll create some unique links that you could share with people for about your projects. Okay, so we'll also have authentication mechanism with GitHub OAuth. Okay, and yeah, we'll do a bunch of these things, and that's the whole idea or structure of the project. Any questions, anyone, before we get into writing code? Okay, doesn't seem to be any. And oh, which language are we going to? We are going to use JavaScript, and so the and we'll use frameworks, of course. So for the backend, we'll use Express.js library for our server side setup. For the front end, we'll use React with a Vite dev server setup. And the Chrome extension itself would be JS plus some JSX. Okay. What type of tools are we going to use? The only tool required, in my opinion, not the only, actually, two tools required for, in my opinion. One is a text editor. I would prefer if you have VS Code, because I need to remember the shortcuts of VS Code, at least most of the shortcuts. So it would be very easy to be on the same page. And second, you need to have Node.js installed. And I would say at least have Node 20 or above. to install Node.js, I think a simple Googling should help. Okay, I have shared the link to Node.js download and Visual Studio download. And you just have to do the default setup, which would take like 5 minutes. So you don't have to worry too much about it. Depending on your system, please download the version properly and just hit install. And then you are done. Uh, as I said, we need minimum node 20. So that is my only request slash requirement, because most of the libraries that we are going to use would be updated to latest, and node 18 is coming to end of life soon. So yeah, minimum 20. Okay. Okay, tutorial to install Node.js. I sent you the website. All you need to do is download depending on your system, which what do you want to download? It's x64 in this Windows installer MSI. Double click, double click, double click, and that's it. Yes. Well, of course, depending on your system, choose which one do you want. Okay, so for Windows, for Mac, for Linux, go for the pre-built one. Okay, this is what you want. The MSI for Windows. For Mac, I would suggest go for, depending on your system, uh, go for the Apple Silicon, which would be ARM 64 one. Actually, both of them should work. You don't need to download both of them. These are same things, just different extensions. So either MSI or the zip. Okay. Okay, I think that's good. And next is, so all the code that we write would be available on this GitHub. I will keep pushing to this GitHub, and so any point I tell you, you can find the latest code on my GitHub. This is the website this is the URL you need to visit. Okay, and one final request before we get started. Uh, this might be easy for some people. Some people might already have experience, and if you think that, oh, it's too simple, too easy, too boring, I would still request you to stick around, so that others who are beginner in this journey, who have never done this before, who want, some guidance, some help, and let's say I'm not able to look at chat, just help them around. I think giving the knowledge is the best way of learning something. So yeah, that would be my only humble request with to all of you, that if you know all of this, still stick around. Okay, and help others. Okay, I think that's enough of things to say, and now let's get started. So what I want you to do, and I hope you all attended the Get Good with Git session. Okay, and in those sessions you might have learned how to use Git, which is like super nice, because we are going to use Git a lot. Okay, now another thing, what if you don't have Git installed? So you might have to download Git as well, and you can find that link here. Okay, I hope you have Git installed. I am not going to go over how to use Git. We have a ton of uh, really awesome getting started with Git sessions streams that have happened in the past. You can find all of them on the Major League Hacking YouTube channel. So the link is in the chat. So find a good find a Git tutorial. All of our tutorials are good Git tutorials, I would say. And check out the latest one. I think that was streamed like 14 hours ago. And in that stream, you will learn how to use Git, how to set up Git, all those things. So I'm not going to go into details of how to do that. But once you have done that, and I hope you have an account on GitHub, okay, Git and GitHub, separate things, okay, don't mix it. And you have GitHub set up, create a new repository. So you can do that by going into this. On the top right, there's a plus symbol, and just click on new repository. Give it a name, keep it public probably, add a readme if you want, create repository. Once you do all of that, this is exactly where you will end up with. Depending on what name you gave, that would be the name copied over in the readme. I would suggest give it the same name. Okay, so once that is done, go on this code and go on this clone tab and the HTTPS. Copy the URL to keyboard, come over to your terminal in VS Code. You can find the terminal by going into VS Code, new terminal, and you should have the terminal ready. Let me show it again. Once you do that, all I want you to do is just do a git clone and then paste the URL that you copied. And that should download whatever repository you created on GitHub. Okay. So once you have done that, this is where you end up with. Okay. This is what you end up with. So you'll have your folder name, you'll have your README, and that's it. Okay. There's a very good question where to check all the past videos. YouTube, best place to check all the past videos from all the sessions that are going to happen in this Cloud Week and in the previous GHWs. Okay, so once that is done, I hope you only have one version of Node.js. I have multiple. So I'm going to switch over to NVM use 20, which is now using Node 20 and NPM version this. To check what is your Node version installed, you can do node dash dash version. And that tells me it's like version 20 for me. Let me zoom in a bit on the screen. And similarly, npm, which is the package manager, even though the full form is not Node Package Manager, uh, I have that will get installed as part of Node.js, and that is version 10.9.1 for me. So that's how I know that I have at least Node 20 on my system. Okay, so I have switched over to Node 20, and now let's get started. So from the code perspective, the first thing that we are going to do is create a few folders. Okay, now these folders are not hard and fast, and what I mean by that is that it is quite possible. Wait, oops, what happened? Sorry. So it is quite possible that these folders structure might change. We might move some code around, we might add some stuff, we might remove some stuff. So I want to show you the whole process of how you get started. But sometimes you just remember, oh, I forgot to put this, I forgot to put that, oh, I could improve this feature by this or that. So yeah, we'll start with the basic one, and at any point we feel, oh, this is not working for us, we will kind of just you know push things around, pull things around, move things around. Okay. Also, I woke up with a blocked nose, so my voice might sound robotic. This is not exactly how I sound always. uh, okay, so let's start. The first thing that I'm going to do is create a new folder inside this. So I'm clicking on this new folder button or icon and create a new folder called backend. Now, inside the backend folder, so I am going to cd over, or basically move over to the backend folder. So now my path is this. If you are on Windows, I think cd still works in Windows. Uh, yeah, cd works in Windows, definitely. So you can cd or change directory over to the backend folder, and you can see what it contains. Currently it does not contain anything because it's an empty folder. In Windows, if you want to, so I'm going to do ls, which is list, but in Windows you could do dir. Okay, so that is a Windows command to see what exists inside the directory or inside the folder. uh, so it does not contain anything. So let's start. So now that you have node.js installed, npm installed, we will start by using one of the very simple commands, which would be npm init. Okay, and it will ask us a bunch of questions. So let's go over those questions so that we understand exactly what's going on. So I'm going to type npm init and I'm going to hit enter. Now it will ask us a bunch of questions. So first is, what would be the package name? Should it be called backend? Like that is what it would be called by default. And I'm going to say yes. So I'm going to hit enter. The version number 1.0.0. Yes, sure. Description, I am going to leave it for the time being. Entry point would be like by default, it would create it would be index.js. I'm going to leave it at default. So I'm going to hit enter again. Test command, I'm going to leave that as well. Git repository, going to leave that. Keywords, leave that. Author, leave that. So by leave that, I mean just hit enter, enter, enter. License, I'm going to change that to MIT. And it will now ask, is this okay? And I'm going to say, yes, this looks fine. And I'm going to hit enter. So now if I look over into the newly created file, which is package.json, this is what I will see. Okay. So you all should reach exactly this point, I feel. Uh, no two ways about it. All we did was just kept on hitting enter, enter, enter. The only time we actually typed something was to change the license type to MIT, uh, which basically means it's an open source project. Anyone can use it, anyone can put it in their portfolio. Yeah, so I always encourage any project that I build in GHW Stream, definitely put it on your portfolio if you think it's worth enough, and enhance it. Okay, don't just drag and drop it as to say that, oh yeah, this is what we did, because everyone would have done that, whoever joined the stream. So I would say enhance it, add a feature or two, improve the UI, uh, and it would be a very portfolio worthy project. Okay, so definitely put it in your portfolios. I have no rights or anything over the project. Okay, so go for it. Uh, okay, so this is what we ended up with. Very simple package JSON, and there is no libraries that we have installed right now, which is, let's say, good in a way, bad in a way. Second thing is, just this package JSON does not really help. So what are we going to do in this backend? So the backend folder, this is where all our server side code will exist. Okay, and what are our server side code? Well, our server side code would be the one that will communicate with our MongoDB Atlas, which is the cloud database that we are going to use. It will communicate with the backend. It will create a URL, okay, which will be used by the front end that we create after this to communicate. Uh, so it would be a layered communication. The authentication that we add later would also be kind of managed by the backend. So from the front end perspective, you might click on a button which says sign up with GitHub. It will send a request to our backend that we are creating, which in turn will send the request to GitHub, do some processing. I'm not going to dive deep into that. Come back with something called as a token, and that token will now be stored on the back end and it will be passed to the front end. So then front end will get authenticated. Okay, it will be authenticated, which means that uh, the user has kind of logged in. Okay, so front end would be authenticated now, and yeah, so our backend would kind of act as a middle layer between everything. Now, the next step would be, let's say, to request for data. Example, when we create these links, we want to get a list of all the links that we have created. We could do that again from front end perspective. I'm not going to say it's like this is how exactly it will work, but from front end perspective, maybe you click on a button which says get all my links, and that will send a request to the backend, our backend, which will then understand what the user is asking for. It will get, wants a list of all the links. Okay, let me go over to a MongoDB database, which will, and it will get all the links from there, and then the server will get it, which is our backend, sorry, backend server terms here and there, and then it will send all of that as a list to the front end. Okay, so that's what the purpose of our backend is going to be. Act as a middle layer, and anytime if the request is invalid, instead of directly going to MongoDB and disturbing it, it will be stopped at our server level, our backend level. It will go like, oh, your request is not valid, I'm not going to allow you to do this or do that, or it's an incorrect request. Okay, so that's what our backend is supposed to work on. And there's a question, is it okay if it is ISC? Yes, it is fine. Don't worry about it. I normally go for MIT, so that's just a preference thing. Okay, so now to create this server, we need to install a bunch of libraries, and yeah, let's get into it. So the libraries that we are going to install. Now, I have this habit of creating called something called as npmrc, which we'll see what the difference is. So let me first install the Node.js library that is like really simple wrapper around Node.js. It's called Express. So I'm going to do inside the backend folder, I'm going to do npm install Express. Keep an eye on this. So it created this dependencies JSON object, and inside that there is a reference to Express, the library that we installed, with the version number. And it also created two new folders. One is Node Modules folder, which has so many things, which has so many other folders. And it also created this package lock.json, which is huge. Okay, all we did was install one library, and this is what we end up with. But the idea is Express itself depends on many other libraries, and those are the ones that kind of get downloaded and added. So here is Express itself has a package JSON, and that package JSON depends on these libraries to exist. If they don't, then it's a problem. Okay, then Express will not work. So this package JSON kind of gets executed and it downloads all the other libraries. Now let's say it downloaded this, I don't know, whatever, it downloaded maybe final handler. Okay, and that itself depends on other libraries, so you end up with this dependency loop. And at the end of it, when all the required libraries have been installed and added, does the installation stop. So when we ran npm install Express, it said it installed like 69 packages, audited 70 packages, 14 packages are looking for funding something. And okay, so it basically added at least, I don't know, 70 odd like folders or libraries. Okay, by adding just one library. Now if you see, there is this raise to or upper caret symbol that basically tells Express that anytime you have a updated version, so if you move from 4.21 to 4.22, update it. I don't like it. Why? Because I like to keep my version number exact so that when it comes the time to upgrade it, I can go and manually upgrade it, so that if anything breaks, like in a newer version, maybe a feature does not exist which I had used, then I exactly know which library upgrade cost it. Okay. So to do that, you could kind of remove this carrot, kind of remove the node modules package lock so that it has the exact version defined, and run the npm install again. Or you could be smart and you can create .npm rc file. Okay, so this is a npm root configuration file, and here I'm going to define that always save the exact version. So don't use that caret, or even there was a tilde symbol, which is this wavy thing. So don't use tilde, caret, and always install the exact version. So let me just remove this dependencies and let me run the command again. So now it installed the exact version, and we still have everything else created, of course. But from my perspective, express version is kind of pinned. This the term here is called as pinning the version. Okay. So we have pinned down the express version. Some other libraries that we will need uh, would be course.env, mongoose. Okay, so these are some other libraries that we will need. So dependencies are the direct libraries that really need to exist for the project to work. And we also have a concept of dev dependencies. So dev dependencies are basically the ones that are not really needed for the project to run. It is more for when someone is developing it locally, it will help them. So one of those libraries that I want to install is called as nodemon, and I'm going to use the tag dash capital D, which means it's a dev dependency. So this is a dependencies object. Now nodemon will go into dev dependencies, and there we go, it gets created, and this is the version. So nodemon is basically a simple script slash library that we will use to keep our server up and running. Okay, you'll know the difference in a bit. Example, uh, so now let me share the command that I wrote, which you can then run inside your backend folder to install all these libraries. So there we go. And similarly for nodemon, the command that I ran was this one. Okay. And my npmrc just has one line, save exact true. Now let's go over this. So there is a entry point or the main file, which is index.js. So let us create this index.js. Okay. In this index.js, we will define some, like now we start writing some JavaScript. So I'm going to use the common JS syntax, and I'll tell you the difference once you actually see, like once you see the difference, you'll understand what I mean. But the way we'll define it is const express equals to require express, the library that we installed. The other library that we installed is course equals to require course. Again, this exists in our package JSON. Okay. The other libraries that we exist in our package JSON, mongoose, And for the .env, the syntax is kind of similar slash different. Excuse me. Require .env.config. Okay. And after this, we'll create a cons app. So what have we done, okay, before we go further? So we have imported all the libraries which we kind of have installed in our dependencies. So Express, Course, Mongoose, and the .env one, we have imported it in such a way that we can use the syntax of .config, which is what they suggest on their documentation. So you can read the documentation of all these libraries. Just search for .env documentation, Express documentation, Mongoose documentation. So let me also give you a very quick overview of all these libraries. So Express, as I said, it is a wrapper around Node.js. Node.js is the one thing that we installed, which will help us create a server. But Node.js syntax itself is kind of difficult to pick up, and Node.js gives us a ton of functionality which we don't need for our very simple app. So we are using Express, which is a lightweight wrapper around Node.js. The second is CORS. So CORS is cross origin resource sharing. So our server will run on a URL on a different port. Our UI will run on a URL on a different port. And by default, browser does not allow things running on one URL to share a resource with things running on another URL. Example, let's say google.com is one domain slash URL, uh, facebook.com another domain slash URL. The browser will not allow sending data from facebook.com to google.com and google.com to facebook.com. Okay, this is resource sharing between two different origins. That is by default disallowed and it will be blocked. So by using CORS, we are basically saying that please allow all the resources to be shared from this server. So anyone from any URL slash IP address, like not IP address, any URL can hit our server and request for data. So that is what we are going to allow for the time being. You can configure CORS to actually also specify that only requests from certain URLs are allowed, certain endpoints are allowed, which would be a better security feature. Next one is Mongoose. So Mongoose is for declaring a schema for MongoDB. Okay, you can find all the details on Mongoose JS. Okay, uh, so as they say, writing MongoDB validation, casting, and business logic boilerplate is a drag. So Mongoose helps simplify that. So the way to connect to MongoDB, the way to uh, define a model of what our database will contain, validating if the proper values are being passed from the front end to the back end. So example, there is cat can have a name and it needs to be string. So if a number is passed, then it will kind of throw an error saying that, oh, you're trying to pass a number to a string, not allowed, sorry. So you can do such kind of validation with MongoDB, sorry, with Mongoose. So that's why we are using it. And .env, this is so that when we create some files which would be kind of secret files, we will store them in .env file. Okay, this is the file that we don't want to push to GitHub, because once this is pushed, it will contain some sensitive information which will not be which should not be shared. Okay, example, MongoDB connection string that contains our username to MongoDB database. It contains the password to our MongoDB database. We don't want that to be shared. So, we'll definitely want to keep it a secret, but we still want to import that file in our project, and we use .env library for that. So I think that is some quick but also a really lengthy explanation of everything. So now let's move ahead. So we create a app. Now this is more of a syntactical thing. Like everyone creates it in this way. So if you go over to Express uh, website and check their documentation, and basically create or follow the syntax that they have on the documentation. Oh, too much on the chat. Uh, I'm assuming this is you don't know JS, which is fine because if you don't know JS, definitely go for you don't know JS series. You can find everything about JS on this. But if you want to get started really quickly, the website that I would recommend is go for JavaScript info, which will give you a very quick overview of what is JavaScript, how it works in the browser. It starts with the proper JavaScript usage. JavaScript engine gives you a overview of exactly uh, what JavaScript works as, how to use it, what different variables are, data types are, uh, the functionalities that exist in JavaScript. So I think this is a quick but comprehensive overview of JavaScript. So I would suggest go for this website to learn JavaScript. Brief explanation. Yeah, we installed package JSON. We added the package JSON, installed a bunch of libraries, and we are starting with index.js, which will be our entry point to our project. And then I just said that I'm following what the Express.js website suggests. So they create const express equals require express, which is what we did. App equals to express. You define a port, all those things. That is what we are doing. Okay. So const app equals to express. Const will also define a port. So const is a way of declaring a variable. So process.env.port, and we will now this is to say that read the port value from a .env file. Okay, if that is available, that is good, or default over to port 5000. So this is a or syntax. So two pipe operators. It is normally above the enter key on your keyboard. At least for me, it is above the enter key. And that's a port number defined. To allow cross origin resource sharing, we will do app.use, and the course library that we imported, I'm calling that here. And our responses request will be JSON format. So I'm going to do app.use and we'll do express.json. So what this says is that it will only accept request and returns the request which are in the JSON format. Okay. And let's get our server running. So we can do app.get, and we will say on the route slash, which is the default route or the home route. A route is basically the endpoint. Okay. In this case, what happens is you will have a request and response. And for any kind of request, return res.send Should I do a return? Let me think. We can just do a rest.send. Don't really need a return. One stop backend running. Okay. And now we'll listen on this port. So app.listen. It needs a port number, which was defined in the port variable. And then we can do just a callback saying console.log, and this is something that will print in our terminal here. Okay, server running on port, and I'll use the backtext functionality. Interesting. Okay, so this is what we end up with. Like, this is the code that I have written. And now let's actually get it running and then make changes so that you understand what every line is doing. Okay. So to run this, we first need to go over to our package JSON, and in the scripts, we want to create a start script. Okay. Since we have Node installed and this is a Node.js project, we could do node space the name of the file that we want to run. So node space index.js, that is the file that we want to run. Now in the backend, to run this script, we can do npm run start. So if I do that, it first gives me an error. At least for me, it doesn't have to give you error. Uh, oh, there are too many questions. I'll come back to all those questions in a minute. So for me, it says that the address is already in use. This port number that I have written, this 5000 is already in use. Okay. So I can change the port number to 5001. Okay. And I can run start again. And now it says server running on port 5001. Where is this coming from? This is coming from this particular line, server running. So if I change like my server running, stop this, start it again, it now says my server running on port 5001. Okay. So here there's dollar curly brackets, and inside that a variable is defined, which is this port variable. And that basically gets replaced with whatever the value is coming from here. Process.env.port, this is failing because we don't have a env file defined. So then it is going over to the or part and going for this particular port. If I change this to 5000, shut and restart, it fails. Let's create a env file. The file name needs to start with a dot, and then you do env. And what does this say? Process.env is a Node.js thing, but this part is the actual variable name. So we need to define a port equals to 5001, let's say. You can call it anything. It doesn't have to be 5001. You can go for 6001, 7001, 5550, like anything, any port number. So I'm going for 5001. And now if I clear this and just do a npm run start, even though this one is 5000, my server is running on port 5001. Why? Because now it is able to read the variable in the .env file, and it processes that first. Okay, so it does not go over to the or part. It finds a value for this, assigns it to this port variable, which gets used here. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now 5001, not really understandable. So It actually is on localhost colon 5001. So let me go over to localhost colon 5001, hit enter, and that says one stop backend running. So, hooray, we got our backend up and running. Now, all I did was go over to localhost colon 5001 and a forward slash, which kind of gets removed. So, that is this particular thing. So, if I say slash server, okay, any change that I make, I have to stop my server, restart my server, go over, and now see it says cannot get slash. Why? Because this message is being sent on slash server. So if I go over to 5001 and do a slash server here, hit enter, there we get the response. Okay. So that is the part where we define the app.get. Now, get is a rest what's the word, it's a request type. Yes, it's a rest request type. You can read all about request type, request methods, requests. Yeah, I think that's, yes, http methods. You can read all of about that uh, on mdn. So there are there's get, head, post, put, delete, connect, options, trace, patch. Okay, so these are the http methods that exist. We are using the http method called as get, okay, which works in browsers simply. Now, I don't want this slash server, so I'm going to do this. And now if I go to slash, it still says cannot get it. Why? Because, well, my server has not updated. This is where nodemon helps. So if I go over to package.json, create a new script called as server, and here I will call the library nodemon that we have installed in the dev dependency. So nodemon space index.js, stop this server, and now I'm going to run my second script, which is server. So npm run server script. If I do that, now I see nodemon is actually serving this. If I go over here, yes, it works. If I go over to index.js and change it to slash blah, okay, my server restarts due to changes. Okay, now if I reload here, I did not need to stop the server and start it again. It just works out of the box. Okay, so that is why we use the nodemon uh, for local development, so that any change that you make will be uh, easily and quickly visible. Okay, next is, okay, so I think this is actually a good point to stop and push everything. But before I push everything to GitHub so that you can have this exact same code, there's one thing that I want to do. Do you see this 1K plus changes? It says there are 1000 plus file changes. But I know for a fact that node modules folder is not really required to be pushed to GitHub, because if you have the package.json and even package lock.json and you do npm install, it will create the node modules folder. Also, as I said, the .env file is going to be very is going to be secretive. We are going to add some secret data there. I don't want that to be pushed on GitHub, which will be visible to everyone around the world. So I'm going to create something called as a .git ignore file, and inside this I'm going to say a few things. Number one, folders which I want to ignore. One of the folders that I want to ignore is node underscore modules. As soon as I do that, my this one says, oh, it's grayed out. Okay, that means it is not going to be pushed to GitHub. And now my changes have reduced from 1K plus to just 6 file changes. Okay, there are a bunch of other things that I want to ignore, but I also want to ignore the .env file. Notice where I have created it. It is outside the backend folder. Okay, .git ignore is outside the backend folder, and now even my .env is grayed out. And now if I go over to my changes, it says only these files have changed. Okay, and I will copy paste everything that I want to ignore. I have that defined. So there we go. I want to copy paste all of this. Once I push this, you can copy this from my project, okay, from my repository. But yeah, I think these are the ones that I definitely want to ignore. Okay, all these folders. Perfect. So I'm going to do git also in the readme. I don't like the way this is written. I'm going to change that as well. We'll call it one stop Chrome extension. Okay, and I think this is good enough for changes. I'm going to do a git add, which is to add all these files, then a git commit, and this is going to be feature initial setup session 1. Okay, and now I'm going to do a git push that should push everything to my GitHub. Okay, so now if you go over to my GitHub repository, you should have everything that I have created. So it should have the, oh, did I not do, oh, oops. I did a git add before I added the readme. So let me do a git add again. And I'm going to amend my previous commit. Uh, Oopsie doopsie. I made a add an issue. What I did was I'm trying to do a git add all from inside the backend folder, but these two files are actually outside the backend folder. So that's a problem. So I'll need to cd outside here. Okay. And now if I do a git add all, and now if I do a git status, yeah, these two files unfortunately did not get pushed. So what I'm going to do is going to reset the last commit. Okay. Yes. So this is what I end up with. You don't have to do it. Don't worry about it. Uh, just give me 1 second so that I can actually get everything up and running properly. There's my git ignore. There's my env file. My package JSON is lost, so I need to create that as well. Actually, I don't need to do this. I can just do a cd. Just give me 1 second. Just fixing boo boo that I made. See, this was pushed, right? So I can just copy this. Mhm. It's my package JSON. and index.js. That's what I want to create. And my npmrc file, it just has one line. Okay, and let me check if everything works properly. Server running, reload, yep, works. And yep, I think that is good. Env is commented out. Yes, cool. Let me come outside one level. So I'm going to create two terminals here. This is inside the backend folder, and this one is outside. Let me do a git status. Okay, git add all, git commit amend, and I'm going to do a git push force. So that should basically push everything that I have, and it should be correct. Yes. So there's the README. Oh, this one I had also changed. One stop Chrome extension. Okay, cool. So I think I have corrected out every issue that I had. Yes. And all I need to do is now do npm install so that I have the package lock as well. And I am okay. Now it's perfectly complete. Okay, so now I think this would be easier. I just tried to kind of ensure that my GitHub is set up properly. So this is the README, the git ignore that we have, which ignores the env file, ignores the node modules folder. There's a backend folder created with these files. There's a package.json. There is a index.js. Uh, Inside a package.json, we have the start script, the server script, and the test script, which was automatically added. Uh, the npm rc. The most important to run the whole project is this index.js, which is what we are actually running. And that's it. Yes, I think this makes much more sense. Now let me go over the questions. There are a lot of them. So not a pre-recorded. Yes, it is live. And for reference on Python, I'll have to search for something. Like I think there are a few things. One would be I would recommend based on my personal experience. And yeah, the way I learned Python was to go over the book called as Automate the Boring Stuff with Python. And anytime I got stuck, I looked at Corey Schaefer videos. So automate the boring stuff is what I would recommend. It's like that's how I learned Python. And you can put it on your portfolio. Is this a beginner and intermediate? It goes from beginner to intermediate. Uh, I think just need a bit of JavaScript knowledge. Uh, and yes, I've shared the GitHub repo right now. For the Chrome extension challenge on the MLH, are we turning in what we are programming? Wait, I have no idea about the dev post Chrome extension challenge. Can you share a link to that? Oh, that's just a reference. If you're talking about this on the Global Hack Week challenges thing, that is just a reference to the session, to attend the session, to learn how to. Uh, oh, yeah, that is a reference to my session. So, yes, you will submit what we build as a part of this session, actually. Okay. So, follow, as it says, follow UT's track this week and submit your Chrome extension to DevPost. Okay. So, follow this track, build it with me, and submit this. Yes. In all the streams of my, in all my streams, yes, we are going to continue building this project. Okay. So, yeah. So, I would suggest add something if you can, if you have time. If you don't, then you can submit exactly what we built. Okay. uh, yeah, but do add some tweaks, because I think that is great. Adding tweaks is definitely the best way to learn. Okay. I think that's all the questions that I have, like, I've seen till now. So let's move on to the next bit. So now that the backend is complete and it is up and running, and I have like approximately 1 hour left in this first session. So the next thing that we want to do, the next thing that I want to do is to set up MongoDB. Yes, that's one thing that I want to set up. So I am going to share two links with you. If you are a student, okay, if you are a student, then in that case, you can actually get some free credits from MongoDB by, if you visit this link that I am sharing in the chat. Okay, and I'll show you what it looks like. If you visit this link, you can get a $200 benefits with GitHub Student Developer Pack. Okay, so you will get $50 Atlas credit and free MongoDB certification credit of $150. And yep. So if you are a student, then you can kind of get this benefit. All you need to do is get the GitHub Student Developer Pack, sign up. There is a process. You need to submit your fee receipt or your ID card to prove that you are a student, and then you can come on this website and get it. But if you don't want to go through all of that, then you can just join MongoDB Atlas for free. So I'm going to share another link in the chat, which is this one. So mlh.link slash MongoDB free. So now this one, if you visit the link, it will give you access to MongoDB Atlas Cloud for free. Okay. All you need to do is sign up, or you can sign up with Google. Okay. And, or you can enter your details, create your Atlas account. You can do all of that. And once you have done that, you will end up with a sign up page like this. What you need to do is create a new project. So I am actually going to walk you through it. Okay, I have tried it, I know it works. So I will actually walk you through it on how to exactly do it. So let me first delete everything so that I can show you fresh. Now, this is after you have signed up on MongoDB Atlas. Okay. So once you have done all the sign up process and everything, you will need to create a project. Once you create a project, uh, I'll show you exactly how to do it and what to do. So as I said, I've tried it. I know it works. So I'm going to show it to you very quickly. And you will need to follow these steps to, yeah, get everything up and running. So I've done this once, I'm going to do it again. So now this is the fresh start of it. Okay, what I'm showing you is, once you have signed up to MongoDB Atlas, it will ask you to create an organization. Once you have created an organization, then you have to create a project. Okay, so please hear me out carefully. Stop everything that you're doing. Hear me out. Sign up to MongoDB Atlas, create an organization. Once you have created an organization, you can call it anything. I'm calling it like Utkarsh's org, with some date, because that's how long ago I created it. Uh, can I delete an organization? Apparently, I can't, because this is the only one. But once I have done that, once you have created an organization, then you have to create a project. So I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to give it the name as MLH-GHW one stop extension. Okay, so this is my project name, and I click on next. And yes, my email would be the owner. So I click on create project. Once I have created a project, so that is basically that encompasses everything. Okay, then I create a cluster. So an organization can have multiple projects. A project can have multiple clusters. A cluster can have multiple databases. Okay. So I am going to create a cluster. I click on create. Now there are three options. Of course, for me, I want to go with the free option. Okay. So I choose free. I am going to remove, actually, I'm going to check the automate security setup, but I'm going to uncheck the preload sample data set. I need to give it a name. So I am going to give it a name as one stop extension cluster. My provider, I'm going for AWS. The region which is closest to me is actually Ireland. Choose the region that is closest to you. Okay. So example, if you are, let's say, in Mumbai, then of course go for Mumbai. So if you are in India, choose any regions which are in India, which are free. That is best. If you are in the US, in the States, then choose any of the regions which are in North America. Okay, US, North Virginia or Oregon. If you are somewhere in Europe, then depending on the region there, okay, like the closest region, like example for me, it's from UK. The closest would be for me, I think, Ireland. Actually, Paris would actually be similar, but I'm going to go for Ireland. And yeah, that's it. So you have to give it a name. In the quick setup, uncheck the preload sample data set, because we don't want any sample data set to be created. Provider, I'm going to go with default AWS. Choose the region that is nearest to you, and choose the free option. Okay, I can't stress on it enough. Choose the free option, and now create deployment. Now, if I create deployment, okay, fire hydrant, one, two, three, this one, yep, verify. And now it will prompt you, it will give you a username and it will give you a password. My password is currently visible, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this password. So I'm going to hide it away from this screen, and I'm going to change this password. Okay, so I have created a new password thanks to LastPass password generator there, uh, and that I have hidden. So my current IP address will be added to the local connectivity. The username, that's fine. The password, I have hidden that. I'll also change the username for the time being. and then you have to click on that create database user. So copy your username and password. Once it's lost forever. Okay, again, can't stress on it enough. Please, please, please copy over your username and password. Okay. Okay, I think that is done, and then click on the create database user option. Once you have done that, once you have created the database user, there was a button there, create database user. Next is choose a connection method. And we don't want to do anything right now because a cluster is still being created in the background. So I am just going to close this for now, and let me reload this. Your cluster is being created. Okay. And yeah, okay, while it's being created, let me come over to the chat and see if there is any questions. Yeah, sometimes it can take a bit of time. uh, I don't think there's anything you can do other than probably if you have any email address to email to, any support email address, definitely email on that. Okay, so cluster still being created, can take a minute or two. Okay, so once that is done, then what we need to do is click on this connect. So this is my one-stop extension cluster. Click on connect, and what we want is the connection string. Okay, so hear me out properly. We want the connection string, and you can find it in the drivers. So if you go into the drivers and you see this is the connection string that we want. Okay, so I'm going to copy that. Hmm, okay, so you can also find the clusters on the left tab. Go into your this one, connection connect, and then connection string. Okay, my username is kind of visible, uh, but my password isn't, which is great. So yeah, just copy over that connection string, replace the db underscore password part with the password that you had. Okay, that's what you want. Okay, so I am going to do exactly that. And where do you save this? So let me again go over and let me copy this one. Okay, we will go over to our project in the backend, and we will create a new variable called as mongodb underscore uri, and that is equal to this connection string. I'm going to replace my db password with my actual the password that I have, and then I'm not going to show this file ever. Okay, so let me do that, because it's supposed to be secret. Okay, so that is why we ensure that this does not get pushed to github. And yeah, I have done that exactly. I have changed the db password to this particular password, and that's done. Okay, so once you have done that, that means you have kind of set up the link to the mongodb cluster connection. So inside this, we have not created any collection. So we have the cluster and the link to the collection, but there is no collection here. So you can think of a collection as a encompassing thing, a folder with multiple folder inside it. Okay. So we can kind of click on add my own data, create a database name, create a collection name, uh, and that's it. I'm going to leave it as is. By default, MongoDB will create a collection of tests. Okay, so I'm going to go with that for now. We'll change it later. Okay, so okay, so I have added the connection string in my .env file as MongoDB URI and something, just so that you remember what variables to put in the .env. I'm going to create a example file. Okay, so I'm going to create this env example, and I am going to push this on the previous commit. So now if you go into backend, there will be a .env.example where it will tell you that you have to create these values, but in a .env file. Actually, I should also add something. Copy over these variables in .env file. Okay. Yes. So now there would be explicit instructions on what to do. Okay. So you have to create a .env file, take these variables and replace, like make it 5001 and replace this one with the connection string. Okay, cool. So I think that is good. uh, Next, let's create our first model. Okay, a project model. And once we have created that model, we'll create a project route. And once we have created that route, we will create we'll test it. We'll create a collection. So let's like do that exactly. So inside the backend folder, I'm going to create a models folder. Inside this models folder, we will create a project.js. So what is a model? So a quick intro about MongoDB. So MongoDB is a database which is a NoSQL database. A SQL database is like a structured database. Okay, it has rows and it has columns. A NoSQL database looks more like a JSON format. Example, like let's say package JSON. Okay, this is a it's no unstructured thing. uh, so MongoDB is a NoSQL unstructured document database. Okay, what this means is that every thing that you create, or every object or every document that you create, two documents can have different structures. That is fine. Okay, MongoDB does not really differentiate that, oh, your previous structure had uh, fields like start server and test, but your new document has start server test lint or format, like something else. So there is no schema to it. It's schema less. That's the whole premise of MongoDB. But for our sanity and to ensure that our project stays consistent, we can create a schema. That schema is called models. Okay. So in the project model, we will create a schema and we'll use Mongoose to validate this schema. And what this helps is that you now have a structure, like which fields are allowed. It still looks like a key colon value pair, but it has a structure. Like project schema can only have these 3 or 4 fields. Okay, that's it. And with using Mongoose, we can also add some validation that this needs to be of type this, of type that, all those things. So that's why it's a good idea to have a schema. So let's add a schema. We'll create const mongoose equals to require mongoose. Now we'll create a const project schema equals to new mongoose dot schema, and inside this we can define what fields will our project schema contain. So it will contain a name, and that will be of type string, string with a capital S. Okay, and it is a required field, so I'm going to say required true. So if from the front end you receive a request for creating a new project without the name field defined, without the project name defined, then it will throw an error and it will not allow to create it. A project can have a description as well. Again, that would be of type string. A project can have tags as well, and that would be an array of strings. It can have multiple string tags are like your hashtags. Okay, you can have multiple of them, and it will have a created at field to keep a track of when was this actually created. That will be of type date, and the default will be date dot now. So what does that means is that whenever like if the front end tries to create a project, then the current date, the exact date, the exact time right now when it was being sent to the server will be stored. And we'll do a module dot exports equals to mongoose dot model, and this is the project model and the schema name. So project model, you can think of like the file name here, and the schema name is project schema, which is this one. That is what we are exporting. Okay, so that's our project schema done. Now let's create a route. A route is, we actually saw routes, right? In index.js, this app.get, this is a route. A route is the URL endpoint, like the URL that you visit. Okay, the after the slash, wherever you visit, that is your route. So we'll create a routes folder. Inside this, I'm going to create a project routes.js file. Now project routes.js, we'll like import a bunch of things. We'll import express equals to require express. We'll create a const router, and that is going to take a function that exists on express, and we'll also need to keep a reference to our project schema, and that will come from require dot dot slash models folder. So we are going one level up from routes folder and going into the models folder slash project. Okay, that is the file that we have. So that's our schema. Now let's do two routes. The first route would be to create a new project. So to create a new project, what we need to do is to create something. You will need to use a method called as the post method. So what is a post method? It is a method that submits an entity to a specified resource, often causing a change in state or side effects on the server. Simply explained, to create something new is to create the state of, to change the state of something. Like creating is now adding a new thing. So the state of our database needs to change, and we use the post method for it. So I'm going to do router.post. On what endpoint? It will be on the slash endpoint. And async. Why async? Okay, so async is another thing that JavaScript offers. normally JavaScript would be synchronous. Okay, a code is executed line by line. Once the previous line is done, then the second line, next line, then the next line, then the next line. Okay, so you have a synchronous way of execution. But sometimes some things take too much time. Example, uh, creating something in the database can take, like, let's say 10 seconds. Okay, if your database connection is slow, your internet is slow, or you're not receiving the response. So do you want to stop the execution? Because if it takes too much time, JavaScript might error. The other part of the code that could have been executed will not execute. And if a response is not returned quickly, JavaScript might think, oh, we are never getting this response, so let me send an error to the user. That's not the case. It might take some time, but it will eventually happen. And that is the idea of async and await, where we are saying that this request is asynchronous, it can take time. So wait for this request to complete. Okay. So async is asynchronous request. It will not happen one after the other. It might take some time. But when we use the keyword await, then which says wait for this request to actually happen. Okay. So now I'm going to wrap it in a try catch block. Okay, a try catch is a good way of catching errors that can happen. So I'm going to say new project, const new project is equal to await. Okay, wait for the project schema dot create the request dot body, and then we'll send a response rest dot json new project. So to understand this line, we have to run this project, and then you will get a better idea, and we'll catch the error. And if there is any error, then we will send the status code. So rest.status of 500, that is error has occurred, internal server error. I think 500 is. Yes, server response 500, internal server error. Okay. So I'm going to keep it simple and just say, oh, an error has occurred, internal server error, and this variable gets passed here. Also, I think this project schema name is too big, so I'm going to shorten it to just called project. Okay. The other one that I want to create is to get all projects. If you see, this is create a new project, which is single one, but this is get all projects, which will get us all the projects that exist. So we can use as, and it says get. So router dot get on the URL slash, and we can make this again a async thing where it will have a callback to request comma response. Uh, Again, a try catch. In the try, we want to create a variable called as projects, and that will await for project. That is a project schema. Okay, so this project dot find everything, and then we'll return it in a sorted order. So this is also what MongoDB and Mongoose schema actually helps us with. We can do a sort on it, and we can say sorted by the created at time in the descending order. So the latest created should be shown first. Okay, and then we will do a rest.json, which is sending a JSON back. Okay, projects. And then in the catch, we will again just be very simple and just say rest.status 500 dot json error occurred. Okay, cool. So these are two routes that we have created. And finally, I am going to do a module dot exports equals to router. So this is module dot export basically says that export everything that this file has to offer. Okay, and it is exported as part of this variable router. Okay, so to use it, we'll have to go to index.js and make a change there. And if you think, what is happening? Why can't I visualize this? Don't worry. Once we start running this and testing this, it will make much more sense. Okay. Then we'll comment out every line, see what the error is, and then you will be like, oh, okay, this is what that line does. I'm going to import const project routes equals to require from the routes folder, get the project routes. Okay, so that is the only route that we have. And once everything here is done, we need to connect to our MongoDB database. So I'm going to go like mongoose that we have already imported here dot connect, and we have defined a variable called as process dot env dot mongodb underscore URI. It is inside my .env file. I'm not going to show that because it contains my password. So I'm going to basically, like, you have to create the variable with the same name and try to connect to this. Okay. So async await, a very similar syntax is a dot then dot catch. Okay. Which is like, try to connect to this URI that exists, and once you have connected to that, then do some console log, okay, which will be visible in the console when the server is running. So console log, uh, mongodb connected. Okay, but if you face any error in connection, which is like, we can do a dot catch. Okay, if you face any error in your connection, then in that case, just console dot log that error during MongoDB connection. I should have MongoDB spelled same, and then comma error. This variable goes in here. Okay, so this is the code. So let's start with the very first step. Let's first throw some errors. So to throw some errors, all I need to do is, in my env, I just need to add a wrong URL. Okay, so I am going to do exactly that. I'm going to go over, first I'm going to remove it from my screen so that you don't see my password, and I am going to actually just remove the password, and I'm going to add a password 123. Now if I start my server, I am inside the backend folder, npm run server. It tries to go here and it throws an error during MongoDB connection, and this is the error: MongoDB server error, bad authentication failed. So that is the first part, okay, which is this one, the dot catch part. So it tried to connect to MongoDB URI. If it was successful, then we would have seen this, but it was an error. So we got over to the dot catch and we got this error. Okay, so you understand the dot catch part. Now I'm going to add the correct URI after taking it off the screen. Closing that, coming back on screen, and I'm going, like, if you change the env file, unfortunately our nodemon does not restart, so you'll have to stop the whole thing and restart. And now I see MongoDB connected successfully, right? So that means that our MongoDB is up and running properly and there are no errors. Okay. MongoDB is up and running properly and it is connected successfully. Nice. Now, the next thing was the endpoint, right? We have created these project routes. So if I go over to slash, it should ideally work, right? So let's go over to 5001 and slash, and it says one stop backend running. So how do I get to this? So I have not done one thing which you need to do, which is to define the other routes. Right now there is only one route, which is app.get. We have created two new routes inside the project routes.js. So we need to use them. So as the keyword is use. So we will do app.use and we will say we can define a initial part of the route. So we will say if someone goes to slash API slash projects, okay. If some, so this is like a prefix, yes. So this is like a prefix to the route. So if someone goes to slash API slash projects, then it will actually render or run everything that exists inside the project routes. So let's try this. So if I am on this and if I go to slash API slash projects and hit enter, it tries to execute the get request. Okay. And it returns a empty array. To check that it actually did that, we can go over to the network tab, clear all of this, and I'm going to right click and empty cache and hard reload. So it's loading, it's still loading, it's still loading, and it tried to get the projects. So if I go over to the headers, you see that localhost 5001 slash API slash projects, by default, or actually always, the browser sends a get request. Okay. So you can see that get here and it returned a 200 okay because this was fine. But there is no data on our MongoDB database yet. That is why we don't see anything. It's an empty array. So you can see the response is an empty array. Now, let's, as I said, browser by default goes for a get route. Now, if I go to, let's actually see all of these one by one. So the first thing is, what if I, instead of doing a get on slash, I do a get on slash get. Okay. So if I do that, then on slash API slash projects, there's nothing. I have to go for slash get. Okay. So which returns this. So that is the URL part. That's that one thing that we saw. The next thing that we need to see is this project.find thing and rest.json projects. So rest.json projects, if I comment this part out and if I go to slash projects, okay, it loads, and let's see, do you think it will ever actually end up? Why? It will not. Okay, it will keep on loading because there is no response being returned. So that is why the rest.json. Now when can an error occur? uh, so for this error to occur, for this error to happen, the wrong URL uh, is not exactly what we'll need to do. I have to think where, how can we invoke this error? We can kind of go project schema.find. Okay, so project schema does not exist and now it returns me a 500 internal server error. Okay, it's still a JSON. That is why you see these curly brackets. Previously it was the square brackets of array, but now it's a curly brackets of JSON and there is nothing returned. So yeah, this is what we get. If I don't do a dot JSON of the error and I just do a rest dot status 500 and I reload, it will not show anything. It will not return any data. It will just return rest dot status of 500 dot send if I do empty, let's say. Okay, so 500 internal server error, there is no response. Okay, we are not sending anything. But in my case, I like to send back the error as a JSON, so that there is something for the user to actually see that, oh, maybe this is the problem. Okay, got it. Right. uh, Make it always helpful for the user. Okay, so that is our get request up and running. And yes, now I can change this to project again. Now we should get a empty array. Okay, now it returns the status of 304, which is browser's way of saying that, oh, I know that you have gone on this on this URL, you have asked for exactly this URL, this request method, and nothing has changed. So I'm not going to change anything. So I'm going to return 304, which is not modified. But if you want a 200, you can do a reload, hard empty cache hard reload, and that should now return 200. Okay. How do we invoke this create a new project? It needs a post request. So one thing that I would recommend for this is hopscotch.io. It's an online tool to, excuse me, it's an online tool which allows you to kind of test your API. Okay, as you can see, this is from a previous GHW session that I had done. So let me just delete everything. I'm going to reload this whole page. Okay, and what we are going to do is we are going to replace this URL with with our this. Let's try the get request first. So I'm going to change that to this localhost colon 5001 slash API slash projects. It's going to be a get request. There's not going to be any body, and I'm going to hit on send, and it says status 200 okay, and empty array, which is what we see on our browser as well. Now I'm going to copy this, create a new request called as a post request, same URL, and I'm going to send that. If I send that, it gives me an error. Okay, internal server error with these many errors. So it says the path name is required. So this is where Mongoose uh, is kicking in. It is checking the schema. It is validating the schema. So remember the second part where I was like, okay, this is the schema, and also this is the request.body. So the request.body, we can actually console log that. So I'm going to expand this, and I'm going to do a console dot log the request dot body. And if I try to send it again from here, it says the request dot body is a empty thing here. Okay, so to make it more obvious to you all, let me do a request dot body, send it again. Request dot body is empty. What we are expecting is we are going to create the project based on what the body contains, this body parameter contains. So it is going to be in the JSON format, and it is currently returning an error because our schema tries to validate if the body contains the required fields. It does not, so that is why it fails. So let me just do that. I'll create a JSON here. JSON will have a name, and the project will have a name, project 1. Okay, also keep an eye on MongoDB. Currently it does not contain anything. Okay, I have oh, it does, because I actually sent a request, uh, but it failed. Okay, so let me also drop this. Okay, a MongoDB does not contain anything right now. Name project one. Now, if I send this, okay, I'm only providing the name and the project one. It is in the JSON format because that's what we are expecting. We have defined that here, that express.use JSON, like express.json, app.use express.json. Everything needs to be in JSON format. I've chosen JSON, application JSON. I can prettify this, and now I'm going to hit send, and it says 200 OK. Let's go over to our request.body. It contained whatever we added there, the name project one, and it has tags empty array, which is not because it's not required. It has a created at, which is the current exact time for me, 11:56:42. Uh, it has moved by some seconds. And now if I go over to my collection and if I do a refresh, it should now have a test database created, a test collection created with project database, and inside that there will be a ob- document. So this is called as a document. Okay, so it has an ID which is auto generated, the name which is project one which we provided, tags is empty because it wasn't required, created at, we did not provide it, so it went for the default one. Okay, now if I go over to my get, it was empty. If I now do a send, I now get a, like, there's one response. If I actually go over to my browser, reload, there is one response here. Okay, so this is our get and post done. Similarly, the way we created this one, we will create the link, QA, and some other things. For the time being, I think we are at the end of my time for session. So I am going to pause here. Any questions before, any questions related to the session before we end it? Let me also push all the code. So give me 1 second. What we did, we set up project model and route in session one. I'm going to push that. So you should have all the code that we have done so far, and it should be up and running. Okay, so you should be able to actually get this project up and running, provided you add the uh, proper MongoDB Atlas connection string. It should be fine. Okay, you have the models, we have the routes, and we are using it in index.js, and everything works. We actually saw it up and running properly. So any questions, anyone, before we end this session? So what have we done till now? We have set up backend. We have set up the connection to MongoDB. We have created one schema or model, whatever you call it, uh, of project. We have created two routes inside projects, which is a get route and a post route. Post to create a new project, get to get all the projects, and we have tested it on hopscotch.io, and we have received the response. Okay, so I think that's a perfect point to stop this session. The next session would be after 1 hour with Way, where you will, I think, chill around and just have a good time with in the Tetris mini event. And after that event, I have another session, part two of this, which starts at 7:30 p.m. IST, 9 a.m. ET, and 2 p.m. GMT. Okay, so just a bit some conversions for you all. 9 a.m. ET, which is same as 2 p.m. GMT or same as 7:30 p.m. IST. Okay, And finally, before I end, do submit feedback. So the link is in the chat. Yeah, there we go. The link is in the chat. So if you go over to this link, you can submit a feedback for this session. So if you really like the session, then definitely go and fill the feedback form. It should be like, should take 3 to 5 minutes. All you have to do is go over that. This session was the building a Chrome extension part 1 session. Give a rating. I'm not going to give myself a rating. You decide how good was it. Give it a rating, any comments, anything that you have. uh, just fill all of that out, and that will help me improve for my future sessions. That will let MLH know how good am I doing. And depending on your feedback, if I can incorporate it, I will definitely try and improve it. Okay, if you like the session, definitely give me kind of a good feedback. That would be kind of a thumbs up. That will help my morale. uh, if you don't like it, then apologies from beforehand, and I'll try to incorporate any feedback that I get, any constructive criticism that I get. Okay, very important. Constructive criticism that I get. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for all the great questions. Thanks for just listening out to me. The project is there. You can copy paste everything and ensure that you get it up and running. Important is getting the MongoDB set up. Okay, you can go over to mlh.link/mongodb-free to get MongoDB for free. Okay, cool. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, and I will see you in my next session. Cheers. Bye bye.